I stood in that courtroom, hands folded in my lap, watching my sister Natalie collapse into theatrical sobs that would have made a soap opera actress proud. Her lawyer, some slick guy in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, patted her shoulder with practiced sympathy while she wailed into a tissue. "Your Honor," she choked out, mascara running down her cheeks in perfect rivulets, "she stole my daughter from me. My own sister." While I was at my lowest, most vulnerable point, she swooped in and turned my baby against me. "I'm begging you, I'm her mother. Please give me back my child." The family members she'd brought for support, our Aunt Patricia, her ex-husband's mother Linda, even some cousins I hadn't seen in years, all murmured sympathetically. A few shot me looks that ranged from disappointment to outright disgust. In their eyes, I could see what they were thinking. How could she do this? Family doesn't steal family. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair pulled back tight, turned her gaze to me. The weight of that stare should have crushed me. 2 years ago, it would have. But I'd learned something about weight in those 2 years. I'd learned you can carry things you never thought possible when someone smaller is counting on you. "Ms. Brennan," the judge said, "would you like to respond to these allegations?" I stood slowly. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Funny how that works. You spend months trembling every time you have to make a decision about medication or treatment plans or whether you can afford both groceries and copays this week, and eventually the shaking just stops. You run out of the luxury of fear. "Your Honor," I said, and my voice came out steady, clear, "I didn't steal her daughter from her." Natalie's sobs intensified. Her lawyer started to stand, probably ready to object or make some impassioned speech, but I wasn't finished. "She left her. She left a seriously ill 7-year-old child sleeping in her bed, packed a suitcase, and disappeared with her married boyfriend. No note. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone." The murmuring shifted. I didn't look at the family members. I kept my eyes on the judge. "I didn't steal Meredith, Your Honor. I saved her." The judge's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. "I think," she said quietly, "we need to hear the whole story." 2 years earlier, I was living a perfectly ordinary life that I'd honestly been pretty content with. I had a decent job as a medical billing specialist, not glamorous, but stable. A 1-bedroom apartment with a balcony where I grew herbs I never actually cooked with. A standing Saturday morning coffee date with my best friend Simone where we'd solve all the world's problems over lattes. My relationship with Natalie had always been complicated. She was 3 years older, infinitely more charismatic, and had spent our entire childhood being the exciting one while I was the responsible one. Classic dynamic. She'd been homecoming queen. I'd been in the science club. She'd dated half the football team. I'd had one boyfriend for 3 years who broke up with me sophomore year of college because I was too predictable. When Natalie got pregnant at 28 with Meredith, everyone in the family held their breath. She'd been married to Clark for barely a year, and the relationship was already showing cracks. But then Meredith arrived, and for a while, Natalie seemed to settle down. She was a decent mother, not the Pinterest perfect kind, but who is? She loved her daughter in her own chaotic way. I was the fun aunt. I'd take Meredith for weekends, bring her to the children's museum, let her eat ice cream for breakfast because that's what aunts do. She was a bright, sweet kid with Natalie's blonde hair and Clark's serious gray eyes. When she smiled, it was like the sun coming out. Then came the diagnosis. Meredith was 5 when she started getting tired all the time, bruising easily, complaining of bone pain. Natalie initially dismissed it as growing pains, but Clark pushed for tests. When the pediatrician said the word leukemia, the world stopped spinning for all of us. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I'll never forget sitting in that hospital room while the oncologist explained treatment protocols and survival rates, and what the next 2 to 3 years would look like. Meredith was so small in that hospital bed, clutching a stuffed rabbit, not really understanding why everyone kept crying. Clark stepped up immediately. He rearranged his work schedule, researched treatment centers, created spreadsheets of medication schedules. But Natalie, something in her broke. Or maybe something that was always cracked finally shattered. She'd go to appointments, but she'd be on her phone the whole time. She'd forget to give Meredith her medications. She started going out more, staying out later. "I just need a break," she'd say when Clark confronted her.
"I'm drowning. I'm suffocating."
"You don't understand what it's like." 6 months into treatment, I got a frantic call from Clark. He'd come home from work to find Natalie gone and divorce papers on the kitchen table. She wanted out. She couldn't do it anymore. The stress, the hospital, the constant fear, she was done. The divorce was brutal and fast. Natalie didn't fight for custody. She took the settlement money and moved into an apartment across town. She'd see Meredith every other weekend at first, but the visits became more sporadic. She was dating someone new, a guy named Derek who worked in sales and rode a motorcycle and was exactly the kind of excitement Natalie had always craved. Clark was drowning but managing. I helped when I could, driving Meredith to appointments when Clark had to work, staying overnight when she was in the hospital for chemo rounds. Watching this little girl lose her hair, lose weight, lose the ability to run and play like other kids, it carved something hollow inside my chest. Then Natalie started getting worse. She'd show up to her weekends with Meredith hours late, sometimes not at all. She'd promise visits and cancel at the last minute. Meredith would wait by the window, dressed and ready, until Clark finally had to tell her mommy wasn't coming. "Why doesn't she want to see me?" Meredith asked once, her voice so small I almost couldn't hear it. "Is it because I'm sick? Does she not want a sick kid?" Clark and I both scrambled to reassure her, but how do you explain to a 6-year-old that her mother is too selfish to handle discomfort? That some people run when things get hard, even from their own children? The night it happened, I got a call at 2 in the morning. It was Clark, and I could hear Meredith crying in the background. "I need you to come over," he said, voice tight. "Right now. Please." I threw on clothes and drove to his house in 15 minutes, traffic laws be damned. When I got there, Clark was pacing the living room, phone in hand, looking like he might punch through a wall. "She's gone," he said. "Natalie. She left Meredith here 3 hours ago for her custody weekend, said she had to run to the store, and she's gone. Phone's off. Derek's phone is off. His wife called me, apparently he emptied their bank account and disappeared too." My stomach dropped. "What? She left her?" His voice cracked. "Meredith has a hospital appointment tomorrow morning. The big one with the specialist about whether the current chemo protocol is working. Natalie knows that. And she ran away with her married boyfriend and left her sick daughter here like she's a fucking houseplant." I found Meredith in her room, curled up in bed, face blotchy from crying. When she saw me, she reached out her thin little arms, and I gathered her up, feeling how light she was, how fragile. "Aunt Josie," she whispered, "is Mommy coming back?" "I don't know, baby," I said, because I couldn't lie to her. "Not about this. Did I do something wrong?" "No. God, no. You didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect." She clung to me, and I held her, rocking slowly, while Clark tried frantically to track down Natalie. By morning, it was clear. She was gone. Really gone. Her apartment was cleared out. Her social media accounts deleted. She'd left one message on Clark's voicemail that was so short and cruel it made me want to throw something. "I can't do this anymore. I need to live my own life. Take care of Meredith. I'll be in touch when I'm ready." When she was ready. Like her daughter's cancer treatment was an inconvenience she could return to at her leisure. Clark had to go to work. He couldn't afford to lose his job when Meredith's medical bills were already crushing him. So I took her to the appointment. I sat in that oncologist's office, holding her hand, while Dr. Paulson explained that the current treatment wasn't working as well as they'd hoped. They needed to switch protocols. More aggressive chemo. Possibly radiation. And someone needed to make these decisions now. "Where's Meredith's mother?" Dr. Paulson asked gently. "She's unavailable," I said. "We're going to need legal medical authorization from both parents for this level of treatment. Or legal guardianship. These decisions are too significant for informal arrangements." That's when the real nightmare began. Clark immediately agreed I should get guardianship. He trusted me completely, and he was barely holding it together between work and being present when he could. But the legal process required attempting to notify Natalie. The court sent certified letters to her last known address. They went unanswered. Her phone stayed off. She'd vanished into thin air, or at least into whatever life she was building with Derek. Meanwhile, Meredith was getting sicker. The new chemo protocol made her violently ill. She lost more weight. There were nights I sat by her hospital bed, watching her sleep, counting her breaths, terrified that each one might be the last. Clark would show up straight from work, still in his suit, and collapse in the chair next to me, and we just exist in that horrible liminal space where you're too scared to hope and too stubborn to give up. I started taking unpaid leave from work. My savings evaporated. Insurance covered most of Meredith's treatment, but there were co-pays, medications not on formulary, special nutritional supplements the doctor recommended. I sold my car and used Uber. I sold jewelry my grandmother had left me. I took a night job doing data entry remotely because I could do it from Meredith's hospital room. My friends drifted away. Not maliciously, I just didn't have time for coffee dates or girls' nights or normal life things. My world shrank to hospital rooms and pharmacies and learning medical terminology I never wanted to know. Neutropenia, cytopenia, mucositis, port access, central line infections. After 3 months, the court granted temporary guardianship based on abandonment. After 6 months, it became permanent. Natalie never responded to any legal notification. She was too busy, apparently. Because here's what I found out later, she wasn't just gone. She was living her best life. A mutual friend sent me screenshots from a Facebook account Natalie had created under a slightly different name. Beach photos. Cocktails. Her and Derek grinning at the camera, tan and carefree. Captions about new beginnings, and finally choosing myself, and leaving toxic situations behind. Her daughter fighting for her life was a toxic situation she'd left behind. I wanted to hate her. God, I wanted to hate her so much it physically hurt. But I couldn't afford hate. Hate takes energy, and I needed every ounce of energy I had for Meredith. There were so many hard nights. Nights when Meredith was in so much pain she couldn't stop crying. Nights when I had to hold her while nurses stuck her with needles for the 10th time trying to find a vein. Nights when she'd look at me with those solemn gray eyes and ask questions I didn't have answers to. Am I going to die, Aunt Josie? No, baby. You're going to beat this. You're the strongest person I know. Why doesn't Mommy visit me? I don't know, sweetheart. But I'm here. I'm always here. Are you going to leave me too? That one broke me. I held her tighter and promised, voice shaking, never. I will never leave you. I promise. The first time she called me Mom was an accident. We were at a follow-up appointment, 14 months into my guardianship. She was tired, loopy for medication, and when the nurse asked if she needed anything, she said, "Can you ask my mom?" The nurse looked at me, and I nodded, and we both pretended we didn't notice the tears streaming down my face. After that, it happened more often. Not always. Sometimes she'd still call me Aunt Josie. But more and more, I was Mom. And I'd never wanted kids. I'd always figured I was too selfish, too career-focused, too set in my ways. But this was different. This wasn't theoretical future children. This was Meredith, who needed someone to show up, and I couldn't not show up. Clark was grateful but also grieving. He'd lost his ex-wife, lost his old life, and was watching his daughter suffer. We became a weird little team, divorced dad, exhausted pseudo-mom, brave kid. He started dating someone eventually, a kind woman named Teresa who worked as a nurse and understood hospital schedules. He'd always be Meredith's father, but he also recognized that I'd become something more than an aunt. "You should adopt her," he said one night while Meredith was sleeping. "Legally. I'll support it. If anything happens to me, she needs someone. And that someone is you." We started the paperwork. It felt enormous and terrifying and right. And then, after 2 years of silence, Natalie came back. I was at the grocery store with Meredith, who was in remission now, thank God, though we still had monthly checkups and lived in constant low-level fear of relapse. She was walking down the cereal aisle, debating between two sugary options I would have never let her have before cancer taught me that some battles aren't worth fighting, when my phone rang.
Unknown number. Hello? Josie. That voice.
I hadn't heard it in so long, but it was instantly, viscerally familiar.
It's me. It's Natalie.
My hand tightened on the shopping cart.
Meredith looked up at me, curious. Where are you? I managed. I'm back. I'm in town.
Look, I know you probably hate me, but I need to see my daughter.
I've changed, Josie. I've been working on myself. I'm in a better place. I'm ready to be her mother again. The audacity. The sheer fucking audacity.
You left her, I said quietly, aware of Meredith standing 3 feet away. You left a seriously ill child without a word for 2 years.
I was in crisis. I was mentally unwell. I needed space to heal. Surely you can understand that. Where were you?
Derek and I moved to Arizona.
We needed a fresh start.
But things didn't work out between us, and I've had time to think, and I realize I made mistakes.
I want to make it right. I want my daughter back.
Meredith was watching me now, really watching, and she was smart enough to be putting pieces together.
I turned away slightly, keeping my voice level. You can't just show up and expect. She's my daughter, Josie. My daughter.
Whatever paperwork you filed, biology doesn't change.
I'm her mother, and I have rights. That's when I noticed.
She didn't ask how Meredith was doing. Didn't ask about her treatment, her prognosis, her current health status.
Just went straight to demanding her back. Why now? I asked. A pause. What do you mean? Why come back now? After 2 years. I told you. I'm ready.
I've grown.
Did someone tell you about the medical fundraiser?
Another pause. Longer this time.
6 months ago, Meredith's story had been featured in a local news segment about childhood cancer.
The community had rallied.
There'd been fundraisers, bake sales, a GoFundMe that exceeded expectations. We'd put it all in a trust for Meredith's future medical expenses and college.
It was enough to make a difference.
And apparently, word had gotten back to Arizona. This isn't about money, Natalie said, but her voice had an edge now.
Then what's it about? It's about my child. I'll be in touch with my lawyer. She hung up. Meredith tugged on my sleeve. Was that Mommy?
I looked down at her, 9 years old now, hair grown back in soft brown curls, still too thin but getting stronger.
She didn't look excited. She looked anxious. Yeah, I said softly. That was Natalie. Is she coming back? I think so, baby. Do I have to go with her? My heart shattered. Do you want to?
She thought about it, really thought, with the kind of seriousness no 9-year-old should have to employ.
Then she shook her head. I want to stay with you. You're my mom now.
I bent down and hugged her right there in the cereal aisle, and I didn't care who saw me crying. The next week, Natalie showed up at my apartment. She looked good, tan, well-rested, hair professionally highlighted. She was wearing designer jeans and carrying a Coach purse I knew for a fact hadn't been in her collection before. Behind her stood a man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. "This is my attorney, Richard Coldwell," she said, as if we were meeting for brunch instead of her trying to reclaim a daughter she'd abandoned.
I think it's best if we keep this civil. I didn't invite them in. What do you want? I want to see Meredith. Today.
And then I want to discuss a custody arrangement.
I'm her mother, Josie. I know you've been taking care of her, and I'm grateful. But it's time for her to come home. Home? You don't have a home here. You've been gone for 2 years. I'm renting an apartment. 2 bedrooms, fully furnished. I'm prepared to provide a stable environment. Where were you when she was getting chemo?
Where were you when she was throwing up so violently she burst blood vessels?
Where were you when she asked me if she was going to die? Natalie's jaw tightened. I was sick. Mentally sick. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm better now. And I deserve a chance to make it right. You don't deserve anything. She's not an accessory you can pick back up when it's convenient. The lawyer cleared his throat. Ms. Brennan, my client is willing to do this through the proper legal channels. She has parental rights that have not been terminated, while you have guardianship that can be challenged and potentially reversed. We're hoping to avoid a lengthy court battle. Then you shouldn't have come here. Natalie's face hardened. I'm seeing my daughter today, or I'm filing emergency papers to have her removed from your custody. Your choice. I wanted to slam the door in her face. But I also knew how courts worked. How mothers, even absent ones, often got the benefit of the doubt. How biological bonds were treated as sacred even when they'd been utterly severed by abandonment. Wait here, I said. I went inside and found Meredith in her room, drawing. She looked up when I entered, and the fear in her eyes killed me. She's here, isn't she? Yeah, baby. She wants to see you. You don't have to if you don't want to. Will she take me away if I don't? Not today. I promise. She thought about it, then nodded slowly. Okay. But you have to stay with me. We went out together. Meredith clung to my hand when she saw Natalie, and I felt her trembling. Natalie's face crumpled. Oh, sweetheart. Look at you. You're so big. So beautiful. She moved forward for a hug, but Meredith pressed closer to me. Hi, Meredith said quietly. I've missed you so much. Natalie was crying now, and I had to give her credit. The tears looked genuine. I'm so sorry I've been gone. Mommy was sick, but I'm better now. And I want us to be together again. I live with Aunt Josie now. I know, baby. But I'm your mom. And I'm back. Don't you want to come home with me? Meredith looked up at me, then back at Natalie. This is my home. Something flickered across Natalie's face. Anger, maybe. Or hurt. Hard to tell. Well, she said, voice tight, we'll figure something out. Can I take you for ice cream? Just us. I don't think, I started. No, Meredith said firmly. I don't want to go with you. I don't know you anymore. Natalie's tears dried up quickly. She looked at me with pure venom. You did this. You turned her against me. I didn't have to. You did that yourself. We'll see what the court says. She turned on her heel, lawyer following, and left. That was the beginning of a 3-month legal nightmare. Natalie filed for full custody. She painted herself as a loving mother who'd had a mental health crisis and sought treatment. She had a therapist who wrote a letter attesting to her progress. She had Derek's ex-wife's testimony that I'd stolen their contact. Apparently she blamed me for her marriage ending. Logic be damned. She had our Aunt Patricia, who testified that family should stay together and Natalie deserved a second chance. She had character witnesses who talked about what a vibrant, loving person Natalie was. She cried on the stand about how much she regretted leaving, how she thought about Meredith every day, how she'd been planning her return for months. She was good. Convincing. She'd always been a good performer. But I had something better. I had records. Every hospital visit. Every medication log. Every bill I'd paid. Every night I'd documented Meredith's condition. Every attempt I'd made to contact Natalie through the court. Every certified letter she'd ignored. I had Dr. Paulson, who testified about the severity of Meredith's condition and how critical consistent care had been to her survival. I had Clark, who testified about Natalie's abandonment and his full support of my guardianship. I had teachers who talked about Meredith's progress, her stability, her clear attachment to me. I had Meredith's therapist, who specialized in childhood trauma, explaining how damaging it would be to remove her from the only stable home she'd known during the most terrifying period of her life. And I had bank records. Natalie's bank records, which her lawyer tried to block but the judge allowed. Records showing the GoFundMe money wasn't the only reason she'd come back. She was broke. Derek had left her for someone else. Her job in Arizona had fallen through. She needed money and a place to stay, and suddenly remembered she had a daughter. The judge listened to everything. Watched Natalie perform. Watched me simply tell the truth. Then she asked to speak with Meredith privately. Those 20 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat outside that chamber, hands clenched together, trying not to throw up. Clark sat next to me, silent, equally terrified. When they emerged, the judge's expression was unreadable. We returned to the courtroom. That's where we started. With Natalie's tears, her accusations, her performance. And then the judge spoke. I've reviewed all the evidence presented in this case, and I've spoken extensively with the minor child at the center of this custody dispute. This is not a simple case, and I want to be clear about my reasoning. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely hear. Ms. Natalie Brennan, you abandoned your seriously ill daughter for 2 years. You ignored legal notifications. You made no effort to support her financially or emotionally during a life-threatening illness. Your own testimony reveals you were living comfortably in Arizona while your daughter underwent chemotherapy in the care of her aunt. Natalie's lawyer started to object, but the judge held up a hand. You argue you were mentally ill and seeking treatment. But there is no evidence of inpatient treatment, intensive therapy, or any intervention that would have prevented you from at least maintaining contact with your child. There is, however, substantial evidence of social media activity showing you living what appears to be a carefree lifestyle. Natalie was pale now. Ms. Josie Brennan stepped into an impossible situation and saved a child's life. She provided medical care, emotional support, financial support, and most importantly, consistency and love during the most vulnerable period of this child's life. She did this at great personal cost, including financial hardship and career sacrifice. The judge looked directly at me. The child has expressed, clearly and repeatedly, her desire to remain with Ms. Josie Brennan, whom she now considers her mother. She has stated she feels safe, loved, and secure in her current placement. She expressed fear and anxiety about being forced to live with Ms. Natalie Brennan, whom she barely remembers and does not trust. I could feel tears streaming down my face. Therefore, I am denying the petition for custody modification. Guardianship will remain with Ms. Josie Brennan. Furthermore, Ms. Natalie Brennan, as the biological mother, will be ordered to pay child support retroactive to the date of abandonment, as well as contribute to past medical expenses not covered by insurance. Supervised visitation may be granted if the child wishes it and if Ms. Natalie Brennan demonstrates sustained responsibility over a period of no less than 1 year. The gavel came down. Natalie stood up, face twisted. This is bullshit. She's my daughter. You can't. Ms. Brennan, you are dangerously close to contempt. I suggest you compose yourself. Her lawyer pulled her down, whispering urgently. The court adjourned. Outside, Natalie was waiting. Of course she was. She needed one last scene. You proud of yourself? She spat at me. You turned her against me. You poisoned her. I was so tired. So exhausted from 2 years of fighting for Meredith's life and 3 months of fighting for the right to keep her that I didn't have energy for anger. No, I said quietly. You did that all by yourself. You left. You chose a man over your daughter. You chose yourself over a sick child. I didn't turn her against you. I just didn't abandon her. She's my daughter. No. The voice came from behind me. Small but firm. Meredith had slipped out of the courthouse with Clark and Teresa. She walked up and took my hand, looking at Natalie with those serious gray eyes. She's my mom now. You're just Natalie. Natalie's face crumpled. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Meredith, please. You left me. When I was really sick and scared, you left me. Aunt Josie, Mom, she stayed. She was there for every doctor visit, every treatment, every bad night. She sold her stuff to pay for my medicine. She slept in hospital chairs. She held my hand when I was scared. Where were you? I was sick too. No. Meredith's voice was harder now, older than 9. Cancer does that. Makes you grow up fast. You were in Arizona posting beach pictures. I saw them. You weren't sick. You just didn't want to be my mom anymore. So you don't get to come back now and pretend you do. She turned to me. Can we go home? Yeah, baby. We can go home. We walked away. Behind us, I heard Natalie sobbing, but I didn't turn around. Clark and Teresa fell into step beside us, a strange little family unit that worked because we'd all chosen to show up. That was 18 months ago. Meredith is 11 now. Still in remission, thank God. We have checkups every 3 months, and I still hold my breath until we get the results, but she's doing well. Thriving, even. The adoption was finalized 6 months after the custody hearing. Meredith and Brennan became Meredith and Brennan Josie legally. She wanted both last names. Said it showed where she came from and who chose her. She plays soccer now. She's terrible at it, but she loves it, and watching her run around that field with her teammates, ponytail bouncing, cheeks flushed, laughing, it's everything. She's in a gifted program at school. She wants to be a doctor. Specifically an oncologist. Says she wants to help other kids like her. Clark got married to Teresa last year. Meredith was the flower girl and took her job very seriously. We all have dinner together every Sunday. It's weird and unconventional, but it works. Natalie sends cards sometimes. Birthday cards, Christmas cards. They usually include long notes about how she's doing, new job, new apartment, therapy progress. She never asks about Meredith. The cards go in a box in my closet. If Meredith ever wants to see them, they'll be there. So far, she hasn't asked. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. If I resent how much my life changed, how much I gave up. And I tell them the truth, I don't. I didn't plan to become a mother at 35. I didn't plan any of this. But Meredith needed someone, and I couldn't not be that someone. The revenge, if you want to call it that, wasn't planned either. I didn't set out to replace Natalie. I didn't scheme to turn Meredith against her. I just showed up. Every day, every hospital visit, every scary moment. I stayed. And in the end, that was enough. Because the worst thing you can do to someone who abandoned a child isn't punishment or exposure or public humiliation. It's making them irrelevant. Natalie walked away thinking she could come back whenever she was ready, that biology and DNA would be enough. That motherhood was a title that couldn't be revoked. She was wrong. Motherhood isn't DNA. It's not who gives birth to you. It's who shows up. Who stays. Who holds your hand through the worst moments of your life and refuses to let go. Natalie lost her daughter not because I stole her, but because when Meredith needed a mother most, I was the one who answered. That's not revenge. That's just how love works. And watching Meredith flourish, seeing her smile without fear, hearing her call me mom without hesitation, that's worth everything I gave up and more. She's asleep now as I write this, in her room with the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling that we put up together. Tomorrow we have a soccer game, then a birthday party for one of her teammates, then probably ice cream because that's our Saturday tradition. It's ordinary. Beautifully, wonderfully ordinary. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.